Welcome to the Jeffco DeAngelis Foundation podcast series focusing on school safety and security. My name is Kevin Carroll, the Executive Director for the Foundation. Throughout this series, we will be engaging in informative conversations with local, national, and even internationally recognized experts in the arena of school safety. We will be exploring best practices in crisis preparation, response, and recovery, as well as gleaning lessons learned from these remarkable professionals. In special editions like today's with Farrah Soudani, we will also be having conversations with people who have personally experienced school or community shootings. The Jeffco DeAngelis Foundation originated in Jefferson County, Colorado, with a deep passion for and relentless commitment to sharing best practices in community and school safety and security with first responders, as well as school and school district personnel. We, in partnership with Jefferson County Public Schools, support a one-of-a-kind training facility, the Frank DeAngelis Center for Community Safety, where we are broadcasting from today. This former elementary school is now a premier training facility which has supported the training for over 7,200 first responders. Our trainings encompass everything from the practical to the tactical, focusing on proven approaches to preparedness, response, and recovery. More can be learned about the training facility, our team of nationally recognized trainers, and the foundation by visiting deangeliscenter.org. And with that, it's my true pleasure to welcome our special guest today, Farrah Soudani. Farrah was at the Aurora Theater shooting on July 20th, 2012, where 12 precious lives were lost and another 70 people were injured. Welcome, Farrah.
Hi there.
Also joining us today is Mr. John McDonald, Executive Director of School Safety for Jefferson County Public Schools. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Farrah. Appreciate your coming today. It's really great for us. Good to see you.
So, Farrah, as we talk today, we will be exploring your experiences during the Aurora Theater tragedy and after. But I'd like to begin by hearing more about you and your life and experiences prior to that day.
Oh, that's a long time to go over. Prior, I wasn't in school or anything at the time. I was 22 years old working at Red Robin, which is who I ended up going to the movies with that night. It was a big group of us for a friend's birthday. And I don't know, as for experiences, I had some tragedies here and there, definitely nothing quite like that, but kind of, I don't know, all interesting and different in their own ways. So it's hard to think about when something that drastic happens. A lot of your other experiences kind of seem like very minimal in a sense. Like, oh, I was actually hit by a car 2 days before my 10th birthday, but ended up not going to the hospital, just had some bruises. But to me, I don't even think about that anymore because it's, I don't know, very minimal.
And where did you grow up?
Aurora, Denver cusp.
Okay.
My whole life. Born in Aurora, raised in Aurora and Denver. Very eastern side of Denver.
All right. And where did you go to high school?
I went to Overland.
Overland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right smack dab in the middle.
There you go.
Yeah, there's like Overland, Prairie, and Eastridge Elementary all in one corner, and that's like all the schools I went to.
Yeah.
So
during that time when you were in high school, and you thought about, because high school kids do that, right? What's going to be next? Where am I going to go? What do I want to do with my life and this world? What were some of your early thoughts?
I definitely wanted to go to school, something in the health field. Wasn't sure whether it'd be a nurse or massage therapist or even psychiatrist or a teacher. I wanted to do kind of everything. But when I was really young, my brother became a young father, and I helped take care of his little girls, and that was like some of the best years of my life is when they were really little and cute, and that's just kind of where my focus was at that time.
So taking care of kids and enjoying that whole experience.
Yeah, I like the little people. They make me happy.
Great. What started as a night to just have fun with your friends, right, turned into something quite unbelievable. And as you started to tell us, there was a group of your friends who you worked with, maybe 13 of you, is that right, from Red Robin, who decided, let's go see a movie.
I think there were 11 of us, and one of our coworkers, Maria, she had her 2 children with her, her 2 teenage children. And another one of our coworkers was 8.5 months pregnant. She actually had her baby 2 weeks later to the day.
Wow. Wow. So just ordinary night. Let's go have fun. It's something different. It's a midnight showing.
Yep. Well, we went for our friend Alex Sullivan's birthday. His birthday's
okay.
July 20th. He's big comic fan, big Marvel comics. We actually a couple of us got our tickets a couple weeks in advance. So we were planning this for quite a while. And then we get there, I think it was give or take around 10:30. We got there fairly early, we got everything settled, got our
Excited,
row.
right? Yeah.
Like took up pretty much the entire row, and I had a few other friends come who weren't a part of Red Robin too.
Yeah.
So we literally had the whole row except for 2 seats on one side.
Okay. So none of us who were not there at the theater that day can even begin to understand your experience. The first part of it sounds very familiar, right? Getting together, going to see a movie, showing up late, celebrating a birthday. Can you give us some insight into when and how things shifted from something very ordinary to something absolutely extraordinary?
Well, I didn't realize this at first, but before the movie even started, everyone's having fun, joking around, getting up and down, walking around, going to the concession stand. I went there like 3 times to the concession stand that night. And every time I'd come back up to my seat, I would lock eyes with this individual who was sitting on the end. I didn't pay close attention to many of their features, but I just kept locking eyes with him, and his eyes were like almost black. And he had a beanie on, and he just looked very like hollow. Like everyone's here smiling, having fun with their friends. He's just sitting there looking at everyone with the coldest expression, just completely emotionless face.
So it's kind of like gut feeling, just you notice this person and...
Yeah, and like the thing about it is, part of me kept wanting to ask him like, hey, are you okay? Because, everyone else is smiling. Why aren't you? And I didn't, but I kept wanting to. And then once the movie started, my attention span had already shifted at that time. By the time the movie started, and I'm sitting next to my friend Heather, and I don't know, we were joking about something. We were probably being a little rude because her giggle just fills a room. Everyone loves her giggle. And we were laughing about something, I can't remember what. And then I heard the door close. Like some of my friends saw someone get up and leave, and I wasn't paying attention to that part. But I heard the back door close, and I grew up in this theater. When I was in high school, I've ditched school and I've gone to this movie theater. Like I grew up here. It was the place to go. And so I was very familiar with the sounds of the back doors. And I heard that. I'm like, that's weird. I didn't think anyone was out there. And then you kind of hear this thunk kind of sound. And then you see this canister. I didn't know it was a canister at the time. I just saw this
something went flying.
Object. And it went flying, and it came up into the crowd and actually landed a few rows below us, but on the opposite side that I was in.
Okay.
If you're looking at the screen, I was 5th seat from the right.
Okay.
And this landed all the way towards the left. And then all this smoke started coming out. I'm like, great, some jerk, is pulling a prank, and now we're going to have to exit the theater, wasted my money for a ticket, all the things. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you see white flashes. And for a quick moment, I thought it was like a fireworks something, like, I don't know, a Roman candle kind of repetition. And they were white. And then all of a sudden you don't realize that there aren't any sparkles or anything coming down. And before I even realized it was a gun, my Mike White, who was sitting here, and my friend Heather both kind of like pulled me down. And then I'm like, oh shit, this is not a prank. And it's so hard. I could literally go on for hours telling you every detail because your mind is just going so fast that, like we've heard our friend Brian Murphy talk about his experiences, how he says that all your neurons are firing off fight or flight mode, and your brain is working so quickly that everything's in slow motion. And so I'll try to keep the details short so you're not here all night. But because at first when I got down, I'm laying on my right side, so my knees and arms are kind of facing towards the screen. And because I figured, whatever's coming hit my arms and the front of my knees, because that's, least amount of organs there. But because we had no protection, there was literally a few inches of the seat that came over the next level, so you literally had nothing to block you.
Like that, so it's lower, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's not like, Southland Mall or anything where you have the big recliners. You just have the cheap, tiny little seats where you have a cup holder and not much leg room. That was it. And so I'm sitting in that position. I'm just hearing all the pops going off, and you can hear people screaming. And the movie was, at the same time, there was like a fight scene going off in the movie, so you couldn't tell what was real and what was coming from that. Everything was just intertwined.
So lights are still off, movie's still on.
There's flashes from the gun, flashes from the movie. And there's definitely a very different sound from terror and pain. And you can hear when somebody was getting hit and when somebody was screaming. There's very different screams, and no movie can even come close to resembling the true horror of it. And then, so I'm laying on the ground, and for a moment, the shot's going off, it stops. And my first instinct was get up and run. And so I stood up, and before I can even think of where to go or do anything, all of a sudden the pops started going off again, and my side was warm. And so I kind of went like this, and I could feel that it was wet and it was warm.
Your left side?
My left side,
Okay.
yes. And I could feel it was warm, and I'm thought to myself verbatim, oh shit, I'm hit. That's exactly what I thought. And I don't know if I coughed or if it was a movement or a combination of whichever, but when I moved, my organs actually came eviscerated, and I actually reached around with my right arm and I caught them and I pushed them back in. Which, by the way, I found out you're not supposed to do that because of a lot of bacteria. So heaven forbid it happens to anyone.
Knows,
Just
right?
catch it and hold it there.
Who knows? And your friends, did they stand up at the same time when the sound stopped? And
Some people
tried to go,
stayed
or
down.
just-
Some people stood up. I couldn't even see them. Like, I saw Heather kind of next to me, and I saw Mike, and I saw some people down, but it just happened so quickly that there was no response time. There was nothing you could do.
So there you are standing, and you're
and I catch
holding
them.
what you shouldn't be holding, and
Yeah, right. And it was so weird to me. So several months earlier, and I actually hope this woman hears this, I actually watched the movie Soul Surfer, which is about Bethany Hamilton who got her arm bit off. And I don't know if you've seen it, but in the movie, after she gets hurt, she's going into shock, but she stays completely calm. She just keeps asking for her mom. But her staying calm is what saved her life. And for some reason, the first thing that popped into my head is I need to be like Bethany.
wow.
That was the first thing. And so I actually laid down, and I was in a lot of pain. Well, it was more extreme discomfort and then moments of pain because there's just so much adrenaline. It was hard to tell what was what. And so I lay there and I just tried to stay calm. And then shots were still going off. And for some reason, I wanted to take off my shoes. And I don't know why. And so I go to take off my my left shoe, like down below, and I took it off and it was fine. And then I tried to take off my right shoe. I'm like, why can't I use my foot? And I lifted up my left leg, and my calf, a big piece about the size of my hand and probably a few inches thick, was actually like filleted off. And it was just hanging at the
You got
bottom.
hit there too.
And it was so funny. I literally looked at it and I said, nope. That was literally what came to my mind, and I set it down. And I feel so bad because my friend Heather, who is crouched down next to me, I accidentally put it on her face. And at that time is when she got up, and she was shot several times. When she actually got up and ran out of the theater was after I did that. We would joke about that all the time. You have to find the humor in something because otherwise it controls you. And so I'm laying there, my friend Mike, he finally, Mike White Sr., his father actually comes over to me, hovers over me while the shooter is actually advancing up the stairs on our side. And he's like telling me in my ear, he's like, honey, be quiet. Please try to be quiet. I know it's hard. Just try to be quiet. Because I'm sitting there, yelling. And I just remember I'm staring up. I see Mike. He puts his head down, lifts it back up, puts it back down, lifts it up. And then he gets up, takes off his shirt, puts his shirt on my side, grabs his son, who was shot at the time, whips him over and says, you need to take care of her. And Mike actually ran out of the theater to go get help. And then, so at this point, I'm laying on my back. Mike White Jr.'s right here. He's shot in the shoulder, so he's reaching over me with the far side with his left arm, trying to hold me in. And it was a big mess. And then poor Mike, when the first responders came up, Gary Rivley, who was the first officer to get to me, love him to pieces, he actually pulls a gun on Mike and says, put your hands up. He's like, I can't, I'm holding in her organs. So he puts his gun away, and then he comes over and starts helping me. Who, right? Yeah, we didn't know if there was multiple shooters. We didn't know if there was a bomb threat because, fuckface, that's why I call him. I don't give him the respect of calling him by a name. So what he actually did is, for those who don't know, he actually set up a bunch of homemade explosives in his apartment, and he had 3 different devices to ignite the fires. And luckily all of them failed, because otherwise so many more people would have had casualties. I definitely would have died. I couldn't even tell. Well, I technically did die. I died twice on the operating table and came back to life. And it would have been so much worse if he didn't fail.
I heard that part of the purpose in those explosives in his apartment was to distract the police away from the theater before it happened so that the response time would be slower.
Yep, for all of his, for everything he had planned for it to go off. I don't know the exact amount of time before what he was going to do to us, but he had everything timed. He was not a stupid guy. He was actually very smart. He was just an asshole, and he made mistakes. That's the only reason why he didn't succeed to the extent that he wanted to.
So then as that officer is there and telling Mike Jr., raise your hands, and he says, I can't, I'm holding her in, then what happens next?
He came over to me, started holding in my organs. He screamed, I need some help over here. And I was flooded with officers. I remember Don Hickox was the second one to get to me. And I can't remember the order of the rest. There's Scott Osgood who got to me. Chris McDowell held me in the cop car. And I feel awful for forgetting some of the names, but I've met so many. It's like I tried not to mix up who did or didn't do what, because it's just, everything there was just so crazy. And then even meeting them afterwards, I was still I had a bit of short-term memory loss, so it was hard to retain so much information.
Sure. Well, and that kind of trauma too, your mind protects itself as much as you can.
Shuts off its emotional and logical process, so that way you can physically heal. And then once you get down a certain line of physically healing, the mental healing will come in.
It's a pretty incredible way to honor the responders, to remember who they are, what they did.
And it honestly breaks my heart of all the negativity you see about officers, first responders, firefighters. I mean, everything of the sort. Doesn't matter where you go, what you do, there will be a bad apple. But these men and women signed up to put their life on the line every single day. They showed up. It doesn't matter what needs to be done, they get it done. And they do it thinking about the other person and not themselves. So many of the officers ran in to that building not knowing if somebody was still shooting. Some of them ran in without gas masks because they didn't care. They just reacted. And if it wasn't for their focus and just their amazing ability to everyone pushed their ego aside that day. It doesn't matter who was telling you what to do. If they were telling you to do something because they know they have a feeling to get it done. Everyone just reacted. It was the most beautiful coordination in such an awful event that you can ever imagine.
They say there are no more heroes, but boy, we see them a lot, don't we?
Yep, absolutely. And people honestly don't realize how much they respond to every single moment of every single day, knowing that they, more likely than not, they can't, there's a very high possibility they won't come home, but they still do it for everybody else. And I definitely try to keep in contact with as much of them as possible. We call them our Bat family.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, my mom and I, we kind of nicknamed our nurses and responders of that night. We have angels in scrubs and angels with badges.
There you go.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, following that terrible tragedy, you and so many others were just absolutely inundated with media demands and requests. How difficult is that for a survivor? And if you could tell the media something, if you wish they could understand something as they're telling these stories and reporting, what would you say to them?
To what I feel deep down and how I felt back then, it wouldn't be very nice. But coming from someone who's out of that point of view now, it was really hard having them in, just having them be in your life so prominently. It's like you can't leave the hospital without them being there. You couldn't go to court without them being there. And everyone's taking pictures of you. You're just trying to get through the situation, whether it be healing in the hospital, going to court to face the person who tried to kill you and tell your story or not tell your story, and just be there and having to deal with that. I understand it's their job to get the story, and everyone wants to get the most details or the most intimate details first, you know. But a part of going with the ego, fuck your ratings, back off, and if somebody wants to talk to the press, they will come to you. You don't need to hound them. You don't need to call them. I still don't answer phone numbers I don't know to this day because I got so many from reporters that I refuse. I absolutely refuse. Even my employers, I say, text me first or give me numbers you'll call me from because otherwise I will not answer. Mm-hmm. And I'm really bad at checking voicemails. My bad. But no, it's really hard. You have to cope with the event. You have to cope with loss. You have to cope with your physical reactions, whether you were injured or not. Like, your body is still hypersensitive. It's still dealing with all the stress. Just to back off. If someone really wants to talk to you, they will. Let your station just take time to get the story, because truth comes out with time anyways, because there were so many, there was so many so much misinformation from the beginning, like, oh, it was multiple shooters, then there were bombs, then there were this. And it's just, if you just take a step back, get your information first, and then present what you have, it'd be a lot easier on everybody. Not only for those directly involved, but indirectly, and just people watching the news and just knowing, like, where are all these facts coming from? Like, they can't even get the story straight. So just be better for everybody. Just take time and just chill out.
It's a hard way to live for survivors, and I think the challenge then becomes their race to the ratings impacts recovery for all of the survivors and families of those that were lost.
Well, and it was definitely a little bit harder because out of everybody there, my name was brought up a lot more than many, which definitely kind of made it harder for me. Like, I refused to watch the news. I wouldn't really be on Facebook or anything, you know, just staying away from all media outlets of every single kind. I watched movies on DVD while I was in the hospital, so I didn't even watch commercials of any sort. And just, I had to be so adamant about isolating myself because I had enough to deal with within my own mind. I didn't want any outer influence that I needed to deal with on top of it.
So throughout the event and now, right, you've shown such tremendous strength. Where does that come from? Where do you draw your strength from?
One of the ways, and I'm not going to lie, having a sick sense of humor. That's really honesty. Laughter is the best medicine. And if I didn't, I hate that my friends got hurt, and I hate that Sully died on his birthday, and my best friend Heather, who was there that night, she died a few years ago. And I hate the fact that they're gone. I hate the fact that my friends have endured mental, emotional pain, physical pain, ongoing health issues from their injuries that are still causing them problems. And as awful as it was, I would not have made it if it wasn't for them. If I wasn't for that group of people, that unfortunately large group of people, but every single individual, we became so close and have been able to be there for each other in such a way. And we were already really close before, which definitely made it that much easier. But we have a bond like people don't. I think
Shared experience.
I don't know what the biggest group of people there was. It might have been us. But you have so many people have, 2, 3, 5, or 6 people. I had 17. Let me count. 13 plus 4. Yeah, I had 17 people I could talk to vent to let everything out and share experience with. We went to group therapies together. And then there's the what we call our BAT family, your extended family who you become close with during this process, during this healing process. And meeting so many new people and just connecting and having that support, because it's either, hey, I'm having a really good day. Good for you. Hey, I am really fucked up and I can't leave my couch. Give me 20 minutes and I'll be there. Like, you have every outlet. That was a remarkable blessing. And then, of course, you have you have your family, my mom, my brother, my dad, people who I call my brothers my whole life, best friends. Of course, they're always there. But when you experience something with somebody, they understand it on a different level. And it's not anything against those who don't. But for the people who can't understand it, I'm glad you can't. I mean, I hope that people can understand the bond that I have found and that we have found in each other. I, of course, want everyone to feel a closeness. But I am so glad that you can't understand the pain, that you can't understand the fear, that you can't fathom the fear. Because I would never wish that on anybody, not even my worst enemy. It doesn't go away.
So it's like you said earlier, life is different from that point forward, and frames some things differently, even the things before. Getting hit by a car is not as big a deal.
Well, and just honestly learning to appreciate the tiniest little things, like anything from a sunset to a sunrise, or, when you order a latte at a restaurant and the whipped cream just looks so perfect, you want to put it in a picture. Just every tiny detail you appreciate so much more. And, I'm not saying everything is all sunshine and rainbows when it came to afterwards. It was hard and it was ugly. It was really fucking ugly. I went through, and I'm still going through, a lot of bullshit that I didn't know about myself, that I didn't realize I developed afterwards, good and bad. And it's been a really hard fucking lesson to learn. But the lessons that I do learn, I do appreciate to the fullest.
I understand that skydiving has been a thing for you too.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, my friend Maria, who was with me that night, she puts it in a perfect way. She told me one day, we were talking, she goes, you know what? Because I was telling her about skydiving. She just starts laughing. She goes, we will forever be searching for that same level of adrenaline that we felt that night. But we will be searching for it in a positive way. And that's never going to stop, because I love adrenaline. I've always been a fan of adrenaline, even as a child. I scared the crap out of my mom a few times. But when you feel that much adrenaline, I can't explain it. Thinking about it now, it's so unfortunate that it came out in a negative time, but just for the fact of it coming out in such a horrific event just makes you wonder what the human body is capable of, how far it can go, what can you fully experience. We don't use 100% of our brains, what would it be like if we did? And everything you can imagine. And so one of the things is I love going skydiving because it does give you a thrill. It gives you a rush. And as sadistic maybe as this may sound, when I died, I had a vision, whether it was heaven or a dream or anything of the sort. It was my version of what heaven is, truly is. And so for me, one of the reasons why I love riding fast on motorcycles more than I did before and skydiving and everything of the sort is because, for one, if I die, I want to go balls out. I want to go having fun. I want to, on my 100th birthday, if like my health is declining, I want to buy a race car and ram it into a wall at 200 miles per hour. Like, I don't want to die in my sleep. That's no fun. And then two, if I do die, I know where I'm going. I saw where I'm going. And so it doesn't scare me as much.
Talked about a little bit ago, group therapy. How important is it? You got to go through the physical therapy. How important is it to go through the emotional therapy to get to the other side where you're feeling like you're...
It should be top priority. I didn't go to therapy for several months after, actually. I think it was about November, December when I actually started going to group therapy. And it was with a few of my friends who I was with in my Red Robin group and a couple of people who I didn't know. But it was hard getting through. I had to get through the physical healing first before I could start the mental healing, and I knew that. Like, I was just trying to get to the point to where, I wasn't feeling nauseous all the time. I was so medicated that I was floaty all day long. I was on so many painkillers and narcotics and everything. It was rough. And it was so hard for me to even just physically sit in a chair. Like, I think it took me about 5 months before I can even sit up out of bed without using my arms, because I had so much trauma to my abdomen through being shot and through surgery, reconstructive surgery. And it was after an ex-boyfriend of mine, Bill, he got in a really bad car accident and was on his deathbed. And I kind of felt that I was going to start spinning out of control. I started drinking. It was bad. I started doing cocaine back then. After everything my body had been through, I started doing cocaine. And so I started going to group therapy. And it was awesome. I went to this one therapist in the same group of people for, how long was it? I want to say 3 or 4 years. We were in this group together, and it was great. And there, unfortunately, is such a stigma on mental health that even so many of the first responders are like, this is my job. I'm supposed to be able to take this. Men in the military, I can handle it. It's what we're trained to do. No, the fuck you're not. Doesn't matter what you do. You're still a human being. Now, maybe a Navy SEAL or some kind of extreme special op group of the military, they have much harsher training than others, so they may be able to handle it better, but you can't expect to know how you feel. And the hardest part is when people, whether they feel there's a stigma, they feel they're weak, they're like, oh no, I have kids, I have to get back to work, or I can't take care of myself, I have to take care of my family first. No, you have to take care of yourself first. Nothing else matters and no one else comes first. If you're a parent, and I'm not a parent, but what I have witnessed firsthand, if you don't take care of yourself, at least to some degree, you will not be able to take care of your children, mentally, emotionally, anything.
We talked with Lieutenant Murphy about this very same thing a lot. And he said a lot of the departments now are going to mandatory. So it's not, I have to go out of weakness. It's like, I got to go because my boss told me. And then when they go, then they get a chance to say, all right, I got stuff I gotta get out. Makes it more socially acceptable in that kind of an environment. But you're right, the stigma around it is just, it's really hard.
This is really a fight for your life, though, right? Mm-hmm. Your life's worth fighting for. So you've been fighting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a big fight.
Definitely Well, definitely been trying. I am pretty stubborn, so I got that going for me.
I get that sense from you.
So when new people meet you and they find out about, that you were there, what questions do they usually ask, or what do they wonder, or what do they,
They ask if I was hit. They ask if I was with anyone. They asked if I knew anyone who died. Yes, to, all the above. They asked me if I remember what I saw, and like I said, I could go into hours for little details of everything, and I was completely conscious the whole time, even all the way till when I got to the hospital, and they forced me to go under because I assaulted a paramedic, which was kind of funny. But
well, you were the miracle, right? You should have not made it from everything that we hear, and I saw a little clip about a reunion you had with some of the doctors.
Camilla Sasson and Daryl
Yes.
Johnson, they are
And
my babies.
they were
I
like,
love them.
You shouldn't have made it.
Well, what's so crazy is when they said I shouldn't have made it, like my injuries were just so severe. And I believe, of course, I would correct myself, but I believe that I'm one of the people to survive that had one of the most severe injuries. Simply just because the abdomen and all the damage in there and it coming out and stuff like that. There are people who have worse permanent damage than me and were hit with less amount of objects, of bullets. And so, and one thing my mom says that she'll tell you to this day until she's blue in the face is that every miracle that needed to happen for me to live did. And why, well, there's several reasons why I'm honestly glad it happened to me. I learned so much about myself and what I'm actually capable of doing. Whatever hit me potentially blocked whoever was sitting behind me, which were kids. I remember they were in middle school. We had a conversation. Blocked the kids behind me. That because of the type of injuries, they actually added new, what's the word? Machines and stuff in what they call a tub room. It's a type of operating room in the hospital. And they added more machines to make things more accessible and stuff because I was bleeding so profusely that I needed over 40 transfusions or 40 units of blood. Was it 40 or 41? Something around there. And the human body holds between like 6 and 9. So they put different machines for blood, for surgical matters. It was crazy. And it's so unfortunate that situations like this happen in the world, but I'm glad that what I did potentially helped somebody in the medical field.
Help those kids behind you. It helped people in the medical field. Your story and your strength that I was talking about earlier helps people repeatedly, right? It's just, it's amazing to me that you come through something so horrific with such grace and grit and
Impact.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
impact you have.
And tenacity. That screw this. I'm going to make it through it and be the example and live all the way. Live all the way.
Well, I definitely, I do have, my friends, my Bat family and everyone to thank to help support me. My parents for being stubborn and me getting it from them. Like that definitely helped out a lot, having a good sense of humor. But honestly, one of the things which I can tell you, I was actually never able to fight with my mother on this. She was completely correct in this point. Was that,
once in a while.
yes, my mother is over here in the corner just smiling
That's
delicately.
right.
Was that, I forgot it was for. I can't remember if it was an interview. Because I did several interviews and then I spoke on several panels for schools and I can't remember what it was before. I think it was before one of my first interviews. And I was having doubts about doing it. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. Like, I don't care. Everyone knows everything anyways. And my mom, she just pauses and looks at me and she goes, you know what, Farrah, what if the story you tell or someone hearing your story helps them and saves their life the way that Bethany's story helped you? Okay, got a
Can't
point.
say no to that.
Got a point.
Can't say no to that.
I can't. And actually, I'm very glad that she said it, because when I've spoken on panels and an interview I did for MSNBC or anything of the sort, that not only is it very cathartic for me, but I've always wanted to help people. And if it helps people realize, oh, this is an interesting part of the healing process, or, oh, I didn't know if it was possible to hold your organs and still live, or if people just need an ear because they've been through something horrific and they're like, can I just vent to you? And I'm just like, fuck yeah. Like, give me, like, talk to me till my ears bleed. Like, I love it, because so many of us, and I don't know if it has to do with just our society or some weird stigma of the world or whatever the hell it is, that we're supposed to shut down and hold everything in. And I have done that for much of my life, and I unfortunately still do that. And it is really hard when you hold everything in, because you will explode, which is also another reason why mental health is so important. It's just especially if you're a guy, you're taught to bottle it up. You don't cry. You do this. You take care of the family or anything of the sort. And it's like, no, I don't care what your reproductive organs are. You're human. You cry. You have feelings. You have emotions. You have a heart. You cry. If you don't cry, you might be a bit of a sociopath, and I'm a little worried for you. But
So you mentioned being on some panels with some schools and some trainings. What might you say to teachers or administrators or students who struggle to take emergency drills seriously and who have that mindset that it can't happen here?
honestly, get the fuck over yourself. That is the number one thing every single person will feel. It won't happen to me. It'll never happen here. That's not possible. We're a small, quiet little town. No one's going to shoot up our school and kill 18 children and several teachers. That the fact that you think it's not going to happen to you means it most likely will.
Makes you more vulnerable.
It does.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you have to go out 100% on guard at all times. You need to have, several kinds of ammunition and weapons with you every time you go in your car. I'm not saying you have to be paranoid, but don't put it in the back of your mind that it can't happen to you.
Don't have the blinders on.
Yeah.
We have a common friend. We talked about Lieutenant Brian Murphy, who we interviewed for one of our podcasts. How important is it to connect with other survivors who have either a similar experience or just understand your perspective?
It's absolutely incredible. And honestly, I think it's definitely, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a necessity. Not for the fact that you can't heal or can't connect with anyone who hasn't, but when you do, when you reach out to the people and you hear their story, or you just have a common ground, or if you guys are like what has happened to us at a friend's wedding and someone keeps popping off balloons, and because you're in a place with loud acoustics and someone thinks you're getting shot, having someone to look at you and be like, hey, you're safe, you're okay, or just to have your back, not just physically, but emotionally. Like if you're having an anxiety attack, someone who will be there to throw a jacket over your head, throw you over their shoulder, and get you out of wherever you are to help you feel safe. And I'm not saying only people who have been through something traumatic can do this. But when you yourself have been through this type of experience, you notice things other people don't. You notice the very second someone's breathing is off pace. You notice the second that they are looking around the room and they're sweating because their anxiety is spiking. That becomes first nature to you. It's more natural than brushing your hair and your teeth in the morning. And just to be able to have that and surround yourself with somebody who can pay attention to that at all times is very healing. It's very comforting. It's very relaxing in a way, because I've dated, there's a guy who I dated who he would be standing in a line at Walmart, and just from there being so many people in the lines, he would start to sweat and almost pass out. And, just having someone be like, hey, I got the groceries, go to the car. It's very it's very relieving to have that, because it's just a way of feeling safe.
Empowering too.
It is empowering. One of the biggest things about going through a situation is you feel such a sense of no control, that's when it spikes your anxiety. I had no control over how to stop the situation, how to react to the situation, how to control whether or not I got hurt. It's all about control. And having a support system is a way of having a little bit of control into helping you get through the day. I mean, I have friends who I call in other states who have been through the same situation. If you're thinking about somebody and you can't get them off their mind, call them. They may need you more than you think.
So we're just about to wrap up, but as you thought about us talking today, were there any other things that didn't come up in our conversation that you wanted to be sure that people have a chance to hear from you?
Oh, where do I begin? Like I said, I'm sorry I keep babbling in. I constantly go on tangents, and I love talking about my experiences because you never know what somebody can gain from it in a positive way. You never know how, whether it be, you surviving a mass shooting or just you being a single mother and raising your child, you never know how you will impact somebody's life. Screw the social stigma, the stigma of mental health. Like, everyone needs help, doesn't matter who you are, and it's okay to need help. We are not baby sharks. We are not born to raise and survive on our own. We're very social creatures.
Social animals, yep.
So we are social creatures. Reach out to that socializing for help, for anything. Don't think, we did kind of cover a lot, the stigma of mental health. Don't think it can't happen to you. Always, and honestly, more than anything, just be kind. I always think, what if I asked fuckface, what if I asked him, are you okay? And he ended up telling me his life story, ended up not killing people. You never know what can happen. I don't want people to wonder, what if they could have done this? What if they could have done that? Trust your gut instinct.
Do it.
And it's going to be okay.
Wonderful.
I'm struck sitting here talking to you today that Patrick Ireland, a survivor of Columbine, once said that there are victors and victims. I'm struck by the fact you were a victor.
Victor, absolutely.
Yeah, I like it. It's definitely, makes you bitter or better. One of my favorite quotes ever is by Bob Marley, and it's, you never know how strong you are till strong is your only option. And it took me to having my only option to believe in myself. That's how far it took for me to believe in myself. And that's another thing. Fucking believe in yourself, because you have no idea what you're capable of. So just
It's
believe.
good to have champions, too. I can see your mom over here is a huge champion for you.
Absolutely.
She's my cheerleader.
Well, I think this is a great place for us to close for today. And thank you again, Farrah and John, for your time and your daily commitment to helping people learn from your experiences. They certainly are lucky to have you sharing your story while being a part of this important work. This conversation has been brought to you by the Jeffco DeAngelis Foundation. More information can be found out about the foundation by visiting deangeliscenter.org.